Hello everyone, this is Reverend Dr. Paul, and tonight we're going to study paper 161, Further Discussions with Rodan. And that starts on page 1783 in the original book, or paper 16101 in the newer books. Let's have a little prayer and we'll get started. Father, thank you for bringing us together tonight to study this wonderful revelation. Thank you for the wisdom that we have to know that this is a revelation from you, a revelation from God, that we might continue our study of what you would have us to know in this lifetime. We thank you for Jesus bringing us this revelation to us. The fatherhood of God, the brotherhood of man, and the gospel that he brought. And we thank you for his teaching us to do your will in our lives. Pray that you'll be with us tonight and open our hearts and minds that we might learn something and share it with others. We thank you, we give you the praise, and your will be done. In Jesus' name, amen. Okay, further discussions with Rodan. On Sunday, September 25th, AD 29, the apostles and the evangelists assembled at Magadan. After a long conference that evening with his associates, Jesus surprised all by announcing that early the next day he and the 12 apostles would start for Jerusalem to attend the Feast of Tabernacles. He directed that the evangelists visit the believers in Galilee, and that the women corps returned for a while to Bethsaida. I've got an interesting side note to start out tonight. I was working on the paper 194 today, and it was on the arrival of the Spirit of Truth. But one thing it was talking about that's related to this study on Rodan is that the first martyr in the kingdom was a student of Rodan. Did y'all know that? The very first martyr, which was Stephen, and he was from Alexandria. And it's interesting that I think it was the next to the last appearance, or two appearances out from the last, was the appearance that Jesus made at Rodan's house. He appeared to them after his resurrection. And it's very interesting to me to know that a Greek was the first martyr in the kingdom of God teaching, and it was Stephen that was stoned to death, and it was Stephen that Paul saw stoned to death and was amazed by his faith. And he was taught by whom? Rodan. He was a Greek and was taught by Rodan. And it's another thing that's interesting, that even after Pentecost, when Peter and some of the other apostles started changing the gospel from the fatherhood of God to the brotherhood of man, that Stephen and Barabbas, I believe it was, another Greek from Alexandria, both taught the version that Jesus taught, the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. And that is exactly what offended the Jews so much and got him stoned to death. Isn't that interesting? So it was him sticking to his guns even after the Spirit of Truth came to tell the original message of the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. Not the message that Peter changed it to was the salvation through the resurrection of Christ, right? And the sacrificial lamb concept. So I thought that was very interesting. I thought y'all might want to know that. So the first martyr of the kingdom was Stephen. Huh?
Why did someone be killed on such a simple message?
Because the Jews thought it was blasphemy to consider that Jesus was the Son of God, and that we were all faith sons of God, and that we were all brothers in the kingdom of God. So that offended them. They considered it blasphemy. Okay?
Only the Jews.
Only the Jews. That's right. That's right. And of course, Stephen and Barnabas were both Greeks, Gentiles. right? And they were teaching this stuff. Go back to that. Huh? This side?
Roger, what was the Feast of the Tabernacles?
I knew you were going to ask me that, and honestly, Millie, I do not remember.
Okay.
I was going to look it up today, and I completely forgot to look it up.
Okay, we'll figure it out next time.
We'll figure it out next time. Maybe next time we meet, I'll remember to bring it to you. I was going to look it up, though, because it's in the next paper we're coming up on. So on the next paper, we'll definitely go over that.
Roger, do you know if Rodan's name is mentioned in the Bible?
I don't believe it is, Rodney. I don't believe it's mentioned anywhere. Okay. Of course, the Greeks are mentioned because the Greeks were in the garden with Jesus, right? And but he's not mentioned in the Bible. And of course, in the Bible, the 19 appearances of Jesus after the resurrection is not mentioned. That he appeared 19 times. And it definitely doesn't mention that. I don't believe that he appeared to the Greeks, but or at least not to Rodan anyway. So you know, this is information we have that comes probably only from the Urantia Book itself, right? We are so privileged to have this book and give us additional information that was not included in the writings of the New Testament. Really All right, let's see. Millie, I think you're up next. You're in my line this time.
Okay, let's see. When the hour came to leave for Jerusalem, Nathaniel and Thomas were still in the midst of their discussion with Rodan of Alexandria, and they secured the master's permission to remain at Rodan for a few days. And so, while Jesus and the 10 were on their way to Jerusalem, Nathaniel and Thomas were engaged in earnest debate with Rodan. The week prior, in which Rodan had expounded his philosophy, Thomas and Nathaniel had alternated in presenting the gospel of the kingdom to the Greek philosopher. Rodan discovered that he had been well instructed in Jesus' teachings by one of the former apostles of John the Baptist, who had been his teacher at Alexandria.
So one of the apostles of John the Baptist actually taught Rodan before they came here, right? Before Rodan came to get additional information. And another interesting point, Thomas is one of the few of the 12 that stuck to the message of Jesus too. Thomas never taught the sacrificial lamb concept. Thomas always taught the fatherhood of God and the brotherhood of man. And he ended up going to Philadelphia eventually and stayed for a year with Abner and Lazarus. So, you know, there were some of the 12 that stuck to the message of Jesus even after the resurrection and the bestowal of the Spirit of truth. So, not all of them went astray on the message. All right. Diane.
One, the personality of God. There was one matter on which Rodan and the two apostles did not see alike, and that was the personality of God. Rodan readily accepted all that was presented to him regarding the attributes of God, but he contended that the Father in heaven cannot be a person as man conceives personality. While the apostles found themselves in difficulty trying to prove that God is a person, Rodan felt it still more difficult to prove he is not a person.
All right, that's what this discussion is tonight about. And this is a stream. I can see the picture here, but I can't see it on, you can't see it on thing. I can see it on the wall up here though. This was a picture probably oh, it's supposed to be Bartholomew and St. Thomas. All right. That's not coming
I
to you.
have a note here that says this picture cannot be displayed.
Yeah, I do too on this one. I don't know what's going on, why that can't, but that may have disconnected it from the picture here. But we'll go on. All right. Stephen, would you take the next one?
Okay. Rodan continued that the fact personality consists of the thought-centered fact of full and mutual inclusion between who are capable of sympathetic understanding. Said Rodan, in order to be a person, God must have symbols of spirit communication which would enable him to become fully understood by those who make contact with him. Because God is infinite and eternal, the creator of all other beings, it follows that, as regards beings of equality, God is alone in the universe. There are none equal to him. There are none with whom he can communicate as an equal. God indeed may be the source of all personality, but as such he is transcendent to personality, even as the creator is above and beyond the creature.
All right, I'm not going to I'm not going to say anything about this because they actually discuss this a little bit later here. All right. Rodney, would you take the next one?
His contention greatly troubled Thomas and Nathaniel, and they had asked Jesus to come to their rescue, but the Master refused to enter into their discussions. He did say to Thomas, "It matters little what idea of the Father you may entertain, as long as you are spiritually acquainted with the ideal of his infinite and eternal nature."
So, what Jesus is telling them is what? It doesn't matter what everyone's idea of God the Father is. You can speculate it all you want to in different areas. You know, whether the personality is communicable, like that previous paragraph, God does communicate with someone on his equal, and who would that be?
His son?
His Son, the eternal Son in the infinite Spirit, right? So that's an idea of the Father. But what Jesus is saying, as long as you're spiritually acquainted with the ideal of his infinite and eternal nature. And what is the ideal of his infinite and eternal nature? The thought adjustment, right? That's within us, God within us. It's our spiritual acquaintedness with this ideal that makes us close to God, right? So he is ideal, our ideal. All right? Thomas contended that God does communicate with man, and therefore the Father is a person. And how would he do that? Through the thought adjuster, right? Even within the definition of Rodan. This the Greek rejected on the ground that God does not reveal himself personally, that he is still a mystery. Then Nathaniel appealed to his own personal experience with God, and that Rodan allowed, affirming that he had recently had similar experiences. But these experiences, he contended, prove only the reality of God, not his personality. All right? Stubborn philosopher, wasn't he? Millie.
On Monday night, Thomas gave up. But by Tuesday night, Nathaniel had won Rodan to believe in the personality of the Father, and he effected this change, in the Greek's view, by the following steps of reasoning.
One, the Father in paradise does enjoy equality of communication with at least two other beings who are fully equal to himself and wholly like himself, the eternal Son and the infinite Spirit. In view of the doctrine of the Trinity, the Greek was compelled to concede the personality possibility of the universal Father. It was the latter consideration of these discussions which led to the enlarged conception of the Trinity in the minds of the 12 apostles. Of course, it was the general belief that Jesus was the eternal Son.
And Jesus never corrected them on this, did he?
They probably thought it was confusing.
thought it would confuse them more, that's right. Stephen.
Okay? Since Jesus was equal with the Father, and since his Son had achieved manifestation of personality to his earth children, such a phenomenon constituted proof of the fact and demonstration of the possibility of the possession of personality by all three of the Godheads, and forever settled the question regarding the ability of God to communicate with man and the possibility of man's communicating with God.
And that makes sense, doesn't it? Because we can not only communicate with God through the thought adjuster, but while Jesus was here, we could communicate with God directly through whom? Jesus. And after Jesus left, who else can we communicate God through? The Spirit of Truth. Because the Spirit of Truth becomes the presence of Jesus within us, right? The Creator's Son. All right? Rodan.
3. That Jesus was on terms of mutual association and perfect communication with man. That Jesus was the Son of God. That the relation of Son and Father presupposes equality of communication and mutuality of sympathetic understanding. That Jesus and the Father were one. That Jesus maintained at one and the same time understanding, communication with both God and man. And that, since both God and man comprehended the meaning of the symbols of Jesus' communication, both God and man possessed the attributes of personality insofar as the requirements of the ability of intercommunication were concerned. That the personality of Jesus demonstrated the personality of God, while it proved conclusively the presence of God in man. The two things which are related to the same thing are related to each other. Sounds like Einstein.
It does, doesn't it? All right. 4. That personality represents man's highest concept of human reality and divine values. That God also represents man's highest concept of divine reality and infinite values. Therefore, that God must be a divine and infinite personality. A personality in reality, although infinitely and eternally transcending man's concept and definition of personality, but nonetheless always and universally a personality. Now we have to remind ourselves through all of this that our personality comes from God, right? Through God's personality circuit. All right? Millie.
I think it's interesting that he talked about our human concept of personality.
Right. And of course it's different than God's concept, right?
Just like we cannot conceive of eternity, or we cannot really, we know God, but we can't conceive of Him as a being. We can't really understand personality either.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that it's a word that we use, but we don't necessarily visualize it.
Right, right. You know, we do this with animals too, if you think about it. We say animals have personality because they all act different. And that type of personality is different than human personality, right? So we need more clearer terms for our terms for personality, because if you have a lot of animals, each one of them is different. They're not all the same, And
They each have their own personality.
they have their own personality. That's the word we use for it, right? So, and according to the Urantia Book, animals do not actually have personality as such as humans have personality. They have different things. So, anyway, let's go on.
And our personality is not the same as God's personality.
Not even close. Not even close. Yeah.
All right, number 5, that God must be a personality since he is the creator of all personality and the destiny of all personality. Rodan had been tremendously influenced by the teachings of Jesus. Be you therefore perfect, even as your Father in heaven is perfect. That's scary.
Yeah, yeah.
That's
That's a tall order, isn't it?
You want me to what?
Exactly.
When Rodan heard these arguments, he said, I'm convinced. I will confess God as a person if he will permit me to qualify my confession of such a belief by attaching to the meaning of personality a group of extended values, such as superhuman, transcendent, supreme, infinite, eternal, final, and universal. I am now convinced that while God must be infinitely more than a personality, he cannot be anything less. I am satisfied to end the argument and to accept Jesus as a personal revelation of the Father, and the satisfaction of all unsatisfied factors in logic, reason, and philosophy.
There we go. God incarnate, right? Right. Stephen.
Okay. 2, the divine nature of Jesus. Since Nathaniel and Thomas had so fully proved Rodan's view of the gospel of the kingdom, there remained only one more point to consider: the teaching dealing with the divine nature of Jesus, a doctrine only so recently publicly announced. Nathaniel and Thomas jointly present their views of the divine nature of the Master, and the following narrative is a condensed, rearranged, and restated presentation of their teaching.
Rodney.
One, Jesus had admitted his divinity, and we believe him. Many remarkable things have happened in connection with his ministry, which we can understand only by believing that he is the Son of God, as well as the Son of Man.
And let me go back just a second here. On this slide. We all know the understanding of being the Son of God, but remember, I'm saying this for the people at home who have not ever joined us before, the Son of Man being the son of Joseph, right? Jesus was a physical son of Joseph, a human being, right? So Jesus was both the Son of God and the Son of Man. Okay. 2, his life association with us exemplifies the ideal of human friendship. Only a divine being could possibly be such a human friend. He is the most truly unselfish person we have ever known. He is the friend even of sinners. He dares to love his enemies. He is very loyal to us. While he does not hesitate to reprove us, it is plain to all that he truly loves us. The better that you know him, the more you will love him. You will be charmed by his unswerving devotion. Through all these years of our failure to comprehend his mission, he has been a faithful friend. While he makes no use of flattery, he does treat us all with equal kindness. He is invariably tender and compassionate. He has shared his life and everything else with us. We are a happy community. We share all things in common. We do not believe that a mere human could live such a blameless life under such trying circumstances. Really.
We think Jesus is divine because he never does wrong. He makes no mistakes. His wisdom is extraordinary. His piety superb. He lives day by day in perfect accord with the Father's will. He never repents of misdeeds because he transgresses none of the Father's laws. He prays for us and with us, but he never asks us to pray for him. We believe that he is consistently sinless. We do not think that one who is only human ever possessed to live such a life. He claims to live a perfect life, and we acknowledge that he does. Our piety springs from repentance, but his piety springs from righteousness. He even professes to forgive sins and does heal diseases. No mere man could say to profess to forgive sins. That is a divine prerogative, and he has seemed to be thus perfect in his righteousness from the times of our first contact with him. We grow in grace and in the knowledge of the truth, but our Master exhibits maturity of righteousness to start with. All men, good and evil, recognize these elements of goodness in Jesus, and yet never is his piety obtrusive or ostentatious. He is both meek and fearless. He seems to approve of our belief in his divinity. He is either what he professes to be, or else he is the greatest hypocrite and fraud the world has ever known. We are persuaded that he is just what he claims to be.
And we are persuaded the same, right? Thank you.
4. The uniqueness of his character and the perfection of his emotional control convince us that he is a combination of humanity and divinity. He unfailingly responds to the spectacle of human need. Suffering never fails to appeal to him. His compassion is moved alike by physical suffering, mental anguish, or spiritual sorrow. He is quick to recognize and generous to acknowledge the presence of faith or any other grace in his fellow man. He is so just and fair, and at the same time so merciful and considerate. He grieves over the spiritual obstinacy of the people and rejoices when they consent to see the light of truth.
Steve.
Okay? He seems to know the thoughts of men's minds and to understand the longings of their hearts. And he is always sympathetic with our troubled spirit. He seems to possess all human emotions, but they are magnificently glorified. He strongly loves goodness and equally hates sin. He possesses a superhuman consciousness of the presence of deity. He prays like a man, but performs like a god. He seems to foreknow things. He even now dares to speak about his death, some mystic reference to his future glorification. While he is kind, he is also brave and courageous. He never falters in doing his duty.
Right.
Six, we are constantly impressed by the phenomena of his superhuman knowledge. Hardly does a day pass that something transpires to disclose that the Master knows what is going on, away from his immediate presence. He also seems to know about the thoughts of his associates. He undoubtedly has communion with celestial personalities. He unquestionably lives on a spiritual plane far above the rest of us. Everything seems to be open to his unique understanding. He asks us questions to draw us out, not to gain information.
7. Recently, the Master does not hesitate to assert his superhumanity. From the day of our ordination as apostles right on down to recent times, he has never denied that he came from the Father above. He speaks with the authority of a divine teacher. The Master does not hesitate to refute the religious teachings of today and to declare the new gospel in positive authority. He is assertive, positive, and authoritative. Even John the Baptist, when he heard Jesus speak, declared that he was the Son of God. He seems to be so sufficient within himself. He craves not the support of the multitude. He is indifferent to the opinions of men. He is brave and yet free from pride.
Number 8, he consistently talks about God as an ever-present associate in all that he does. He goes about doing good, for God seems to be in him. He makes the most astounding assertions about himself and his mission on earth, statements which would be absurd if he were not divine. He once declared, "Before Abraham I was. Before Abraham was, I am." But that one's true. He has definitively claimed divinity. He professes to be in partnership with God. He well nigh exhausts the possibilities of language in the reiteration of his claims of intimate association with the Heavenly Father. He even dares to assert that he and the Father are one. He says that anyone who has seen him has seen the Father. And he says and does all these tremendous things with such childlike naturalness. He alludes to his association with the Father in the same manner that he refers to his association with us. He seems to be so sure about God and speaks of these relations in such a matter-of-fact way.
You got a pretty good concept of this. Diane, I lost your picture.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
9. In his prayer life, he appears to communicate directly with his Father. We have heard few of his prayers, but these few would indicate that he talks with God, as it were, face to face. He seems to know the future as well as the past. He simply could not be all of this and do all of these extraordinary things unless he was something more than human. We know he is human, we are sure of that, but we are almost equally sure that he is also divine. We believe that he is divine. We are convinced that he is the Son of Man and the Son of God.
Stephen, would you take the next one, please?
When Nathaniel and Thomas had concluded their conference with Rodan, they hurried on toward Jerusalem to join their fellow apostles. Riding on Friday that week, this had been a great experience in the lives of all three of these believers, and the other apostles learned much from the recounting of these experiences by Nathaniel and Thomas.
Okay, so Rodan impressed both these apostles, and he seemed to impress everyone he came in contact with, including the ones he trained in Alexandria. And up on the walls, a picture of Homer, which y'all can't see online because we're not getting the picture for some reason. Okay. Rodney, would you take the next one, please?
I sure enjoyed that description of his personality,
Yeah, that was very good.
or his nature.
Yeah.
Okay, Rodan made his way back to Alexandria, where he long taught his philosophy in the school of Magenta. He became a mighty man in the later affairs of the kingdom of heaven. He was a faithful believer to the end of his days, yielding up his life in Greece with others when the persecutions were at their height.
So he gave his life for the gospel, like so many did. Jesus' human and divine minds. Consciousness of divinity was a gradual growth in the mind of Jesus up to the occasion of his baptism. After he became fully self-conscious of his divine nature, pre-human existence, and universe prerogatives, he seems to have possessed the power of variously limiting his human consciousness of his divinity. It appears to us that from his baptism until the crucifixion, it was entirely optional with Jesus whether to depend only on the human mind or to utilize the knowledge of both the human and divine minds. At times, he appeared to avail himself of only the information which was resident in the human intellect. On other occasions, he appeared to act with such fullness of knowledge and wisdom as could be afforded only by the utilization of the superhuman content of his divine consciousness. So he tried to limit his mind as much as he could to the human mind to experience the full human experience, right? Millie, would you take the next one, please?
Yes, we can understand his unique performances only by accepting the theory that he could, at will, self-limit his divinity consciousness. We are fully cognizant that he frequently withheld from his associates his foreknowledge of events, and that he was aware of the nature of their thinking and planning. We understand that he did not wish his followers to know too fully that he was able to discern their thoughts, to penetrate their plans. He did not desire too far to transcend the concept of the human as it was held in the minds of his apostles and disciples.
Didn't scare him to death, did he? And I bet that would scare him to death. All right, Stephen, take the last one, please.
Okay. We are utterly at a loss to differentiate, there we go.
There we go.
You, between his practice of self-limiting his divine consciousness and his technique of concealing his pre-knowledge and thought, discernment from his human associates. We are convinced that he used both of these techniques, but we are not always able, in a given instant, to specify which method he may have employed. We frequently observe him acting with only the human content of consciousness. Then would we behold him in conference with the directors of the celestial host of the universe and discern the undoubted functioning of the divine mind. And then, on almost numberless occasions, did we witness the working of his combined personality of man and God as it was activated by the apparent perfect union of the human and the divine minds. This is the limit of our knowledge of such phenomena. We really do not actually know the full truth about this mystery.
So the midwives were at a loss about this as much as we were, right? All right. And next time we'll go to paper 162, the Feast of the Tabernacles. It was a short paper tonight. All right. Let's say a little prayer and we'll close for the night. Rodney, would you like to close us in a prayer tonight?
I would like to ask this evening.
Oh, okay, that's fine. How about you, dear?
Heavenly Father, Mother God, we thank you so much for this opportunity to spend time together, reading and studying the wonderful, wonderful book of Revelation, deepening our understanding and our own attitudes towards Scripture, changing us as it does, and making us at times reach deeper and deeper understandings. We also ask for courage to represent your word in the very highest manner possible to our people that we meet and become friends that we have and associates. We thank you for enlightening us and encouraging us and strengthening us and purifying us in all manners. And we are so grateful that we can gather together and study this wonderful, wonderful revelation. We thank you for Roger and his abilities and opportunities to study and continue to study every day and to come to deeper understandings that allow us to also come to deeper understandings. We thank you for this day and thank you for blessing each of us. It is in your name, Jesus Christ, my Lord, that I pray and give thanks. Amen.
Amen. And thank you at home for joining us. Please have a seat. Can we turn off the video and we'll have a couple words here.